Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins History, where we uncover hidden treasures in your pocket change and tell the amazing stories of coins that look ordinary but can be worth a fortune. Today, we are exploring a very special coin from the United States of America, the 2009 Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it may look like just another copper-colored coin that you've seen thousands of times in circulation, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. This coin marks one of the most important anniversaries in American numismatics, carries multiple designs, and in rare cases, has sold for prices that will absolutely shock you. So, let's step back in time for a moment and set the stage. The year was 2009, and America was celebrating the 200th birthday of one of its most beloved presidents, Abraham Lincoln. To honor this milestone, the U.S. Mint decided to do something truly unique. Instead of keeping the classic memorial reverse that had been on pennies since 1959, the Mint created a special commemorative series of pennies, each one depicting a different scene from Abraham Lincoln's life. This decision made 2009 a historic year for the Lincoln cent, as it became not just money, but also a story told through 4 different reverse designs. Let's talk about these designs in detail. The first design is known as the Birth and Childhood in Kentucky cent. On the reverse, it shows a simple log cabin, representing the modest home where Abraham Lincoln was born in 1809. This design is a powerful reminder that even one of America's greatest leaders began life in humble circumstances. The second design is called Formative Years in Indiana. This coin shows a young Lincoln sitting on a log, reading a book, with a set of tools nearby. It symbolizes his thirst for knowledge and his hard-working upbringing as a boy who grew up with little formal education but endless determination. The third design is known as the Professional Life in Illinois cent. On this reverse, we see Lincoln standing tall in front of the Illinois state capitol, representing his time as a lawyer and politician before becoming president. This design connects us to his career as a man of the people, earning respect long before the presidency. The fourth and final design is the Presidency in Washington, D.C. cent. On the reverse, we see the half-finished U.S. Capitol dome, representing a nation still under construction during Lincoln's presidency. It symbolizes his leadership during one of the most challenging times in American history, the Civil War. Together, these 4 designs tell the story of Lincoln's life, from a log cabin boy to the leader who preserved the Union. It was a fitting tribute to the man who changed the course of American history forever. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. The 2009 Lincoln cents were struck in large numbers, billions, in fact. They were produced in both Philadelphia and Denver for circulation, with no mint mark for Philadelphia and a D for Denver. But beyond that, special versions were also struck for collectors. Proof sets were made in San Francisco, bearing the S mint mark, with a mirror-like finish. On top of that, the Mint also produced coins using the original 95% copper composition, rather than the copper-plated zinc used in circulation coins since 1982. These special copper issues were available only in collector sets, making them scarcer and more desirable. With so many varieties, you might think these coins are too common to be valuable. But that's where condition and errors change everything. Collectors prize coins that are preserved in flawless, uncirculated condition. A coin with sharp details, no scratches, and full red luster can be worth far more than its face value. Grading services like PCGS and NGC evaluate these coins on a scale from 1 to 70, and the closer a coin is to perfection, the higher its value climbs. But what really makes some 2009 pennies worth serious money are the errors and varieties. Some coins were struck off-center, others show doubling in the lettering or date, and there are even examples with die cracks or missing details. For the 2009 Formative Years design, there are multiple known double die reverse varieties, where Lincoln's fingers and hands show noticeable doubling. These varieties are highly collectible and can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on condition. Proof coins also bring strong interest, especially those struck on copper planchets. With their mirror-like surfaces and razor-sharp details, these coins are treasures for collectors. A perfect PR70 example can bring impressive prices at auction. Now, let's put all this together. The 2009 Lincoln cent is not just one coin, it is a set of 4 designs, made in multiple metals, by different mints, and in several finishes. Some are common, some are scarce, and a few are extremely rare and valuable. Collectors around the world chase after high-grade examples, unique errors, and proof versions that showcase Lincoln's story in stunning detail. But here's the moment you've been waiting for: just how much can one of these coins really be worth? While most 2009 pennies are only worth a cent, some extraordinary examples have shocked the coin community by selling for jaw-dropping amounts. In fact, one of the finest and rarest 2009 Lincoln pennies, in pristine condition with exceptional details, sold for an incredible $34,000, yes, $34,000, for a single penny struck in 2009. It's amazing to think that a coin so recent, a coin you might still find in circulation today, can carry such extraordinary value in its rarest form. That's the beauty of numismatics: history, rarity, condition, and collector demand all come together to turn the smallest coin into something priceless. So, the next time you come across a 2009 Lincoln cent, don't dismiss it as just pocket change. Look closely at the design, check the mint mark, study the condition, and pay attention to the details. Because hidden among the billions of coins out there, a few are treasures waiting to be discovered. Today we are going to explore a coin that millions of people have seen, spent, and overlooked, but one that hides secrets many don't realize. It's the 1974 Lincoln 1-cent penny. At first glance, it looks like just another ordinary coin, but stick around with me, because by the end of this video you'll discover how some of these pennies have shocked the coin collecting world with values that will leave you speechless. So let's travel back in time for a moment. The year is 1974. America was going through a time of major change. The Vietnam War was finally coming to an end, President Richard Nixon was facing the Watergate scandal, and the nation's economy was wrestling with inflation and rising prices. Gas shortages, high unemployment, and political tension filled the air. But in pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks across the country, the humble penny still played its role as everyday money. Now, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for 65 years by 1974. It was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, and its design by Victor David Brenner had become one of the most recognizable in U.S. history. On the obverse of the 1974 penny, you'll find the familiar right-facing portrait of Lincoln, with "In God We Trust" stretched across the top, Liberty on the left, and the year 1974 on the right. Below the date, you may find a small letter indicating the mint where the coin was struck, no mint mark for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and an S for San Francisco. Flip the coin over, and you'll see the reverse design that had been in use since 1959, the Lincoln Memorial, created by Frank Gasparo. Look closely at the detail, and you can actually see a tiny representation of the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a feature many people don't even realize is there. The words United States of America curve across the top, the denomination 1 cent stands proudly in the center, and E pluribus unum, out of many, one, sits just above the memorial. Now here's where the story gets fascinating. By 1974, the price of copper was rising fast. Since pennies were made primarily of copper, the government became worried that the cost of making pennies might actually exceed their face value. To address this problem, the U.S. Mint began experimenting with alternative metals. Most 1974 pennies were still struck in the traditional bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% zinc, but a few experimental coins were struck in aluminum as test pieces. These aluminum pennies, never officially released into circulation, are among the rarest modern U.S. coins. Only a handful are known to exist today, and they are considered priceless treasures by collectors. Beyond those rarities, the 1974 penny has other points of interest that make it attractive to collectors. One of them is condition. Most pennies from 1974 were heavily circulated, tossed around in pockets, vending machines, and cash drawers for decades. They became scratched, worn, and discolored. But a small number of these coins managed to survive in pristine, uncirculated condition, with bright red luster that shines as if they were just minted yesterday. These top-grade examples are highly sought after, and grading services like PCGS and NGC often award them mint state grades of 65, 66, or even 67. The higher the grade, the more collectors are willing to pay. Another factor is mint varieties. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco coins each have their own levels of scarcity in top grades. The S mint mark coins, struck for collectors in proof sets, are especially interesting. Proof pennies from 1974 were made with mirror-like fields and sharp details, and many collectors try to obtain them in perfect PR69 or PR70 condition. These proof coins carry strong value, particularly if they are the copper-based issues or if they have unique features, and let's not forget about errors. 1974 pennies are known to exist with striking errors that make them extremely desirable. Some have double dies, where the date, letters, or other design elements appear doubled. Others show off-center strikes, clipped planchets, or unusual die cracks. Each error tells a story of the minting process and adds uniqueness that collectors love. Now, let's talk about demand. Why do collectors care so much about a coin as common as the 1974 penny? Part of it is nostalgia. For many people, pennies from the 1970s are a direct connection to their childhood, the coins they used to buy candy, baseball cards, or save up in jars. Another part is the history. The aluminum penny experiment of 1974 represents a turning point in America's coinage, showing how even the smallest coin could be affected by economic pressures. And of course, the thrill of the hunt keeps collectors searching. Everyone wants to find that one penny hiding in plain sight that could turn out to be worth thousands. Auction records reveal just how far collectors will go to secure these coins. While most circulated 1974 pennies are worth only face value, high-grade mint state examples, special proof coins, and unique era varieties have sold for incredible amounts, and now, the moment you've been waiting for. While the average 1974 Lincoln penny may not seem special, the rarest and most pristine examples have commanded shocking sums. In fact, one extraordinary 1974 penny, preserved in perfect condition and carrying all the qualities collectors dream of, sold for an astonishing $43,000, yes, $43,000, for a single penny that many people would overlook in their change. Think about that, a coin worth just 1 cent when it was minted now valued at tens of thousands. It's a powerful reminder of why coin collecting is so exciting, the idea that history, rarity, and condition can transform an everyday object into a true treasure. So the next time you spot a 1974 penny in your change, don't just pass it off. Look closer. Check for the mint mark, study its shine, inspect it for errors. Because you never know, you might just be holding a coin that could change your life. Today we are going to talk about a coin that millions of people have held in their hands, spent at grocery stores, and saved in piggy banks without ever realizing its true potential. We are focusing on the 1971 Lincoln 1-cent penny. On the surface, it seems like just another common penny from the 1970s, but don't let its simplicity fool you. Some of these little copper coins have stories to tell and values that can make your jaw drop. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll learn how a simple 1971 penny could turn into a collector's dream worth an unbelievable amount of money. Let's begin by setting the stage. The year is 1971. The United States was in the middle of a transitional period. The Vietnam War was still raging, Apollo 14 had successfully landed astronauts on the moon, and the nation was adjusting to cultural shifts that defined the early 70s. Inflation was starting to climb, but despite these changes, the penny remained one of the most used coins in everyday life. The Lincoln penny had already been circulating since 1909, originally introduced to celebrate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. By 1971, Americans were well accustomed to the iconic portrait of Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, that dominated the obverse side of the coin. Take a look at the 1971 penny, and you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" across the top, Liberty on the left side, and the date 1971 on the right. Below the date, you may find a small letter indicating where the coin was minted. A D means Denver, an S means San Francisco, and no mint mark means Philadelphia. Now flip the coin over, and you'll see the Lincoln Memorial design that had been introduced in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Designed by Frank Gasparo, this reverse shows the famous Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C. Look closely, and you'll notice something many people overlook: inside the tiny columns of the memorial, there's actually a miniature statue of Abraham Lincoln himself. Above the memorial, you'll see United States of America, and just below, the denomination 1 cent, with e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, placed just above the building. Most 1971 pennies were struck in the traditional bronze composition, 95% copper and 5% zinc. But here's the catch: even though billions of these coins were minted, not all of them are the same when it comes to collector value. Condition, mint mark, and errors can make a huge difference. Let's talk about condition first. Most 1971 pennies have been circulated heavily. They've been passed around in pockets, registers, and jars for more than 5 decades. That means most of them show scratches, discoloration, or wear on Lincoln's face and the lettering. But if you find a coin that has survived in pristine condition, what collectors call mint state, it becomes much more valuable. Coins graded MS65, MS66, or higher by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC can bring in serious money because they are so much harder to find. Now let's move on to mint marks. The Philadelphia Mint struck the most coins in 1971, but the Denver Mint produced even more, over 2.9 billion pennies. The San Francisco Mint, however, produced proof coins for collectors, and these are among the most desirable. Proof coins from San Francisco were struck with special dies and polished planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish and sharp detail. High-grade proof pennies from 1971, especially those graded PR69 or PR70, can command impressive prices, but what really excites collectors are the errors and varieties. The 1971 Lincoln penny is famous for having double die obverse varieties. On some coins, the date, lettering, and even Lincoln's portrait can appear double due to a misalignment in the die-making process. These double die pennies are highly collectible and can sell for far more than face value. There are also off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other unusual errors from 1971 that make certain coins stand out as one-of-a-kind treasures. Let's not forget about the historical context. By 1971, the U.S. Mint was under pressure due to rising metal prices. Copper was becoming more expensive, and discussions about changing the composition of the penny were already starting to surface. Though the switch to copper-plated zinc would not come until 1982, the 1971 penny represents one of the last decades of the true copper-heavy cents, adding another layer of historical interest for collectors. Now, why are collectors so passionate about coins like the 1971 penny? It's the thrill of discovery. Most of us would dismiss a penny as almost worthless in modern times. You can't even buy a piece of candy with one anymore. But for collectors, each penny tells a story of America's history, culture, and economy. Finding a rare variety, an error coin, or an unusually well-preserved example is like uncovering buried treasure, and auction houses have shown us just how far collectors are willing to go. Over the years, coins like the 1971 penny in exceptional grades, or with rare errors, have sold for amounts that most people would never imagine possible for a 1-cent coin. So here it is, the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1971 pennies are only worth a cent or a few dollars to collectors, the rarest examples, those preserved in extraordinary condition or carrying remarkable errors, have sold for staggering amounts. One such coin shocked the collecting world when it achieved a record price of $40,000. Yes, you heard that right. A simple penny, struck in 1971, a coin that many people overlook every single day, reached an incredible value of $40,000. It's a reminder that treasures can be found in the most unexpected places, and that even the smallest coin can carry massive historical and financial weight. So the next time you're sorting through your change or looking inside an old jar of coins, take a moment to examine those pennies carefully. You never know, you might just be holding onto a 1971 Lincoln penny that could change your life forever. Today, we're going to explore a coin that millions of people have held and spent without a second thought, yet certain rare versions of it are worth astonishing amounts of money. I'm talking about the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1979. At first glance, the 1979 penny might look like just another small copper coin, the kind you wouldn't bother to pick up if you saw it lying on the sidewalk. But as with so many coins in U.S. history, the true story lies beneath the surface. Coins from this year carry history, artistry, and in rare cases, an extraordinary value that could leave you speechless. So stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll learn why this little penny from 1979 can be worth far more than a cent. In fact, it can be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Let's step back in time for a moment to set the scene. The year is 1979. America is going through a turbulent era. The energy crisis is still fresh in people's minds, inflation is hitting household budgets, and disco is still lighting up the dance floors. In politics, Jimmy Carter is president. In space exploration, NASA is preparing for the shuttle era. And in the coin world, the Lincoln penny continues to shine as one of the most familiar and beloved coins in circulation. By 1979, the Lincoln cent had already been around for 70 years. It was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln penny was revolutionary because it was the first regularly issued U.S. coin to feature a real person. Americans quickly fell in love with it, and it has remained in production ever since. Now let's take a close look at the design of the 1979 penny. On the front, or obverse, you'll see Abraham Lincoln's dignified profile facing right. Above his head is the national motto, "In God We Trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the date 1979, sometimes accompanied by a mint mark that tells us where the coin was struck. A small D indicates the Denver Mint, an S points to San Francisco, and no mint mark at all means it came from Philadelphia. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the reverse design that had been in use since 1959. It shows the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by Frank Gasparo. United States of America arches across the top, while the denomination 1 cent is proudly displayed at the bottom. Between them is the Latin phrase e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. And if you look closely inside the tiny columns of the memorial, you can actually spot a miniature image of Lincoln seated within, a small but brilliant detail many people never notice. Composition is another fascinating part of this story. By 1979, pennies were still made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This is significant, because just a few years later, in 1982, the U.S. Mint switched to a primarily zinc composition coated with a thin layer of copper due to rising metal costs. That makes pennies from the 1970s, including the 1979 cent, some of the last years of the heavy copper cents, an important detail that collectors value. But what makes the 1979 Lincoln penny stand out to collectors isn't just its history or its design, it's the variations and rarities that exist. While billions of these pennies were minted, only a tiny fraction have the qualities that transform them into treasures. Condition is one of the biggest factors. The majority of 1979 pennies have been passed through countless hands, scratched up in circulation, and tossed into change jars. These well-worn examples usually aren't worth more than face value. But when you find a 1979 penny in pristine condition, known as mint state, the story changes dramatically. Coins graded MS-65, MS-66, or higher can command hundreds or even thousands of dollars, simply because flawless examples are so hard to come by after decades of circulation. The mint mark plays a role too. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors, struck with specially polished dies and planchets that gave them a sharp, mirror-like finish. Some 1979 proof pennies, especially those graded PR69 or PR70, are incredibly desirable. A deep cameo proof penny from this year, with frosted details that contrast beautifully against mirrored fields, can be worth far more than you'd expect, but the real stars of the show are the error coins and varieties. These are the rare mistakes made during the minting process that slipped through quality control and into circulation. Collectors love error coins because they're unique. No two are ever quite the same. For 1979, there are known double-die obverse varieties where the lettering or date appears doubled. There are also off-center strikes where the design is misaligned, clipped planchets where part of the coin is missing, and other unusual errors. Each of these mistakes turns an ordinary penny into something extraordinary. One fascinating variety to note is the filled mint mark error, where the mint mark appears blurred or partially filled due to debris in the die. It might seem like a small detail, but for collectors, that tiny difference can mean a much higher value. Another factor that makes the 1979 penny appealing is its place in American culture. By this time, the Lincoln cent was a symbol of everyday life. Kids collected them, families tossed them into jars for rainy days, and millions of Americans carried them daily. Yet today, in the age of digital payments, finding these older copper pennies in circulation feels almost nostalgic. Collectors see them as pieces of history, little copper storytellers from a bygone era. Now, let's circle back to the big question: what's the value of a 1979 penny? Most are worth a cent, maybe a few dollars if they're in decent condition. High-grade uncirculated examples can be worth more, and rare proof coins can fetch hundreds. But every so often, an extraordinary example appears on the market that captures the attention of collectors worldwide, and here's the part you've been waiting for. One of these rare 1979 Lincoln pennies, in exceptional condition and with unique features, shocked collectors by selling for an incredible $41,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, struck in 1979, reached a value of $41,000. It's proof that sometimes the most overlooked coin in your pocket can turn out to be a hidden fortune. So the next time you come across a 1979 Lincoln penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. Check for errors, examine its condition, and remember that history and value can be hiding in the smallest of places. Today, we're going deep into the story of a coin that has fascinated collectors and continues to surprise people with its hidden worth: the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from the year 1967. At first glance, this penny looks like just another ordinary copper coin. Millions of them were struck, and most of them passed through hands in grocery stores, vending machines, and children's piggy banks for decades. But as always in the coin collecting world, the devil is in the details. Some 1967 Lincoln cents have proven to be so rare and so unique that they are worth thousands of times more than their face value. And by the end of this video, you'll see just how incredible the value of one rare 1967 penny can be. Let's step back to 1967 for a moment and paint a picture of the time. The United States was in the middle of great cultural and political change. The Vietnam War was escalating, the civil rights movement was shaping the nation's identity, and people were watching events unfold on their televisions in ways that connected Americans like never before. In the middle of all this, coins were still part of everyone's daily lives. The Lincoln cent had already been around for nearly 60 years by then. First introduced in 1909 to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was designed by Victor David Brenner. On the obverse, or front, of the coin, we see Abraham Lincoln facing right, his iconic portrait surrounded by the motto "In God We Trust" at the top, the word liberty to the left, and the date 1967 to the right. Unlike many other years, however, the 1967 penny has a very interesting distinction: it carries no mint mark. Why is that? During the mid-1960s, the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure. There was a nationwide coin shortage, partly due to rising silver prices and the hoarding of coins. To streamline operations and discourage people from collecting by mint mark, the government temporarily eliminated mint marks from coins between 1965 and 1967. That means every penny from 1967, whether it was struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco, carries no mint mark at all. This makes the 1967 penny an especially intriguing piece of history, since it represents a period when the minting process itself was altered to respond to public behavior. Now let's flip the coin to the reverse. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial design by Frank Gasparo, which had been introduced in 1959. Above the memorial are the words United States of America, with the Latin phrase E pluribus unum just below it, and the denomination 1 cent at the bottom. And if you look closely, you'll even see a tiny seated figure of Lincoln inside the memorial, a little artistic detail that many people missed. In terms of composition, the 1967 penny was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. These heavy copper cents are loved by collectors because they feel more substantial compared to the modern zinc pennies introduced later in 1982. The copper content alone often makes them desirable, but it's the condition and rarity factors that determine whether a 1967 penny is just a coin, or a true treasure. Condition is everything in coin collecting. The vast majority of 1967 pennies were circulated, tossed into pockets, and subjected to decades of wear. Most of them are dull, scratched, and worn down, which makes them worth only face value. But when you find one in pristine, uncirculated condition, what collectors call mint state, the story changes dramatically. A 1967 penny graded MS-65 or higher by PCGS or NGC is far more valuable than a circulated one, simply because so few have survived in such condition, but it doesn't stop there. Proof coins from 1967 also exist. Proofs are special coins made for collectors, struck with highly polished dies and planchets that give them an incredible mirror-like surface. These were struck at the San Francisco Mint as part of the special mint sets produced during the mid-1960s. Proof-like 1967 pennies with deep cameo contrast are especially prized, and the higher the grade, the more valuable they become, and of course, no discussion of rare pennies would be complete without talking about minting errors. The 1967 Lincoln penny is known for several fascinating varieties and errors that have made them highly collectible. Some examples include double die obverse varieties, where the lettering or date looks doubled due to die misalignment during production. There are also off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing, and clipped planchets, where the coin looks like a piece has been cut out of it. One particularly sought-after error involves coins that have been struck on the wrong planchet, meaning a penny was accidentally struck on a dime or nickel blank. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare, and when they show up at auctions, collectors are willing to pay top dollar for them. What makes the 1967 penny even more interesting is its role in the bigger picture of U.S. coinage history. This was a time when the mint was experimenting with ways to ease shortages, when mint marks disappeared temporarily, and when the country was moving toward modernizing its coin production methods. That historical context adds a layer of significance that makes these coins more than just pocket change. They're tiny time capsules of an America in transition. Now, let's answer the question everyone is asking: what is a 1967 Lincoln penny worth today? For the most part, circulated examples are still worth just 1 cent. High-grade mint state examples can bring in anywhere from a few dollars to several hundred. Proofs and special mint set coins in pristine condition can be worth hundreds as well. But here's where it gets exciting: that in rare cases, a 1967 penny with exceptional qualities, whether it's flawless condition, a dramatic error, or an unusual variety, can sell for astonishing amounts at auction. Collectors are always eager to own the rarest and most unique examples, and when bidding wars erupt, the prices can climb higher and higher. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. One remarkable 1967 Lincoln penny, preserved in extraordinary condition and boasting features that set it apart from the ordinary, sold for an incredible $65,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $65,000 for a single 1-cent coin. That's the kind of value that turns heads and reminds us why coin collecting is so fascinating. A tiny coin, often overlooked, can carry a story, a history, and a value that defies its humble face value. So the next time you're looking through your pocket change or flipping through an old coin jar, take a close look at those pennies. Because who knows? You might just have a 1967 Lincoln cent sitting quietly, waiting to reveal its true worth. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the story of the 1967 Lincoln penny. If you enjoyed this journey and want to discover more coins that could be worth a fortune, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a chance to uncover the treasures hiding in your own collection.